When the Dodgers make a quiet roster move, especially involving a player that most fans are not familiar with, it usually means there is more going on beneath the surface. Andy Ibanez is exactly that kind of acquisition. On paper, it might look like a simple depth move, but once you start digging into his background, his skill set, and the current state of the Dodgers roster, you begin to see why this signing matters more than it initially appears. Ibanez's journey to the major leagues is anything but ordinary. He developed as a player in Cuba, representing the Cuban national baseball team during the 2013 World Baseball Classic, a stage where many international players first catch the attention of major league organizations. He also played in the Cuban National Series, where he gained valuable experience facing high-level competition before making the life-altering decision to leave Cuba in November of 2014. Less than a year later, he signed a minor league deal with the Texas Rangers in July of 2015, beginning a long climb through professional baseball in the United States. From there, Ibanez did exactly what organizations hope depth players will do. He worked his way up without much noise, learning different roles and adapting to every level he encountered. He spent time in several minor league systems, gradually proving that he could handle better pitching and more demanding defensive responsibilities. Eventually, that steady progress earned him time in the major leagues, where he logged parts of 5 seasons split between the Rangers and the Detroit Tigers. This was not a brief cup of coffee. He stuck around long enough to establish a clear profile of the kind of player he is. Offensively, it is important to be honest about what Ibanez brings to the table. He is not an impact bat and has never profiled as a middle-of-the-order hitter. Over his major league career, the numbers show a below-average offensive player overall. With Detroit, in just under 200 plate appearances, he posted a batting line in the range of 239 for average, with modest power production and an on-base profile that reflects a contact-oriented approach rather than patience or slug. That resulted in an offensive output that sat below league average, which is something the Dodgers are clearly aware of. However, the real value in Ibanez's offensive profile comes when you break down his splits. Against left-handed pitching, he has been a noticeably better hitter throughout his career. He owns a significantly stronger batting average and run creation mark versus southpaws, showing a comfort level and approach that allows him to compete effectively in those matchups. Against right-handed pitching, the production drops off sharply, reinforcing the idea that he is best utilized in specific situations rather than as an everyday offensive presence. This is where the roster conversation becomes interesting. The Dodgers have long valued players who can be deployed strategically, especially right-handed hitters who can punish left-handed pitching. That type of profile has been a staple of their roster construction for years, and Ibanez fits neatly into that mold. When you compare him to recent Dodgers who have filled similar roles, the parallels become hard to ignore. The organization has repeatedly shown a willingness to sacrifice some overall offensive production in exchange for matchup advantages, defensive flexibility, and reliability in specific roles. Looking at the current roster context, Ibanez's presence naturally raises questions about how he fits alongside other versatile players. The Dodgers have relied heavily on players who can move around the diamond, cover multiple positions, and give the coaching staff options on a daily basis. Ibanez checks that box in a very real way. While he spent most of last season at third base with Detroit, the majority of his career innings have come at second base. On top of that, he has experience at first base and even some limited exposure to both corner outfield spots, giving him a true multi-position profile. Defensively, this versatility cannot be overstated. The Dodgers place enormous value on players who can cover injuries, give starters rest, and adapt to game-to-game needs without forcing roster shuffles. Ibanez may not be a standout defender at any single position, but his ability to play first, second, and third base competently, with emergency options in the outfield, makes him extremely useful over the course of a long season. He is the kind of player who quietly appears in lineups when needed and allows the roster to breathe. Another critical factor in this acquisition is Ibanez's roster status. He is out of minor league options, which means the Dodgers cannot freely move him between the major leagues and the minors. If he is on the roster, he must remain on the active roster or be exposed to waivers. This detail matters because it signals intent. Teams do not acquire out-of-options players lightly. Doing so usually indicates a plan to keep that player on a major league roster, at least to start the season, and to give him a defined role. Financially, Ibanez also fits the Dodgers' approach to depth. He was a Super 2 player with just over 3 years of service time and was projected to earn a relatively modest salary through arbitration. After being non-tendered, he became an affordable option who brings major league experience without impacting payroll flexibility. For a team that already has significant financial commitments, these types of moves help balance the roster without sacrificing depth. There's also a broader context to consider when evaluating why the Dodgers made this move now. The team is not entering the season with a perfectly clean bill of health. There are question marks surrounding several players, including those coming off off-season surgeries or dealing with lingering issues. Having a player like Ibanez available provides insurance. He can step into the lineup if needed, handle multiple positions, and allow the team to manage workloads without rushing anyone back before they are fully ready. From a strategic standpoint, this acquisition aligns with how the Dodgers typically operate during the regular season. They value depth, flexibility, and matchup advantages, knowing that the season is a marathon, not sprint. Ibanez is not being brought in to change the identity of the team or to replace a core player outright. Instead, he represents a stabilizing piece, someone who can absorb innings, provide competent at-bats in the right situations, and keep the roster functional when adversity inevitably hits. All of this leads to the bigger picture question of how Ibanez impacts the overall roster construction moving forward. His skill set, contract status, and lack of options suggest that he is more than a simple depth signing. At the same time, his limitations indicate that the Dodgers see him as part of a larger puzzle rather than a centerpiece. Understanding where he fits requires looking not just at his numbers, but at how the Dodgers have historically used players like him and how those roles evolve as the season unfolds. When you start connecting the dots, Andy Ibanez's arrival naturally sparks conversation about how the Dodgers manage their bench and, more specifically, how they balance similar player profiles within the same roster. The organization has never been shy about stacking versatile pieces, even if that creates overlap on paper. In reality, that overlap is often intentional. It allows the team to survive the grind of a full season while still preserving flexibility for October, when roles become far more specialized. Ibanez fits into that philosophy almost perfectly. He is a right-handed hitter who is most effective against left-handed pitching, can move around the infield, and has enough experience to avoid being overwhelmed when thrust into meaningful games. That alone gives the Dodgers a tactical option they value highly. In a regular season filled with matchup-based lineups, scheduled rest days, and inevitable injuries, players like Ibanez often end up playing more than fans initially expect. This is also where comparisons naturally emerge with other utility-type players the Dodgers have leaned on in recent years. The team has often carried players whose primary value was not star-level production, but rather reliability in specific roles. Those players may spend much of the regular season coming off the bench, spot starting, or filling in during stretches when a roster is thin. Then, when the postseason arrives, the calculus changes and the front office decides who truly fits the October puzzle. That distinction is important when evaluating whether Ibanez represents any sort of long-term threat to established roles. The Dodgers are not making this move with the idea that he will suddenly become an everyday cornerstone. Instead, they are adding another controllable variable to their roster equation. His presence gives the coaching staff another right-handed bat to deploy against lefties and another defensive option when the lineup needs reshuffling. Another layer to this situation is timing. The Dodgers are clearly thinking ahead, not just about opening day, but about how the roster will look across several months. Early in the season, depth often matters more than star power. Players are still building endurance. Some are working their way back from off-season procedures, and others are adjusting to new roles. Having a player like Ibanez available during that phase can stabilize the roster and prevent overexposure of players who may not yet be 100%. His lack of minor league options reinforces that idea. Because he must remain on the active roster, the Dodgers are essentially committing to finding him meaningful use rather than stashing him away. That commitment suggests confidence in his ability to contribute, even if that contribution is subtle and situational. It also implies that the front office views him as capable of handling the unpredictability that comes with being a true utility player on a contending team. Defensively, Ibanez's profile continues to stand out in that context. While he's not a shortstop by trade, his experience at first, second, and third base covers a wide range of scenarios. The Dodgers have repeatedly shown they prefer players who can slide across the diamond without forcing drastic lineup changes. Over the course of a season, that flexibility can save wins in small but meaningful ways, especially when injuries pile up or when matchups dictate defensive alignment. There's also a subtle psychological component to having players like Ibanez on the roster. Veterans who understand their role and accept it can help maintain clubhouse balance. They know they may not play every day, but when called upon, they are prepared. That mindset is crucial on teams with championship expectations, where ego management and role clarity often determine whether depth pieces succeed or fail. From an offensive strategy standpoint, Ibanez gives the Dodgers another option to manage platoons. Against left-handed starters, he can be inserted into the lineup without forcing the team to compromise defensively. Against right-handed pitching, his role can be reduced or shifted to late-inning appearances where a specific matchup presents itself. This is the kind of granular decision-making the Dodgers excel at, and it is why players with defined strengths often find a home in their system. The financial aspect also continues to matter as the season progresses. Because Ibanez comes at a relatively modest cost, the Dodgers preserve flexibility for potential moves later in the year. They are not locked into an expensive contract that demands playing time. If circumstances change, the team retains options, whether that means adjusting the roster, making a trade, or redefining roles as younger players emerge. All of this ties back to the Dodgers' broader roster philosophy. They build teams that can withstand chaos. They expect injuries, slumps, and unexpected developments, and they prepare accordingly. Ibanez is not a headline-grabbing signing, but he represents the kind of calculated move that helps sustain a contender across 6 months of baseball. As the season unfolds, his true impact may not be immediately obvious. It could show up in a stretch where he fills in seamlessly while others recover, or in a handful of key at-bats against left-handed pitching that tilt the game. It could also be reflected in how the Dodgers manage workloads and keep players fresh without sacrificing competitiveness on any given night. Ultimately, evaluating Andy Ibanez requires understanding how the Dodgers think about value. They do not look solely at batting averages or highlight plays. They look at how a player fits into multiple scenarios, how he complements the roster around him, and how he helps the team navigate the long, unpredictable road from spring to late summer. In that sense, Ibanez is less about replacing anyone and more about reinforcing the structural depth that has defined the Dodgers' approach year after year. But before we move forward, don't forget to join our channel and give this video a like. Your support helps us keep delivering the latest news about the Los Angeles Dodgers. We'd love to hear your thoughts on the news, so drop a comment below. The Los Angeles Dodgers may be on the verge of one of the boldest moves in recent MLB history. Rumors have begun swirling that the franchise is targeting Vladimir Guerrero Jr., the Toronto Blue Jays superstar, as a transformative addition to their infield. Sources close to team insiders suggest that discussions are already underway, and if the deal comes to fruition, it could redefine the Dodgers' approach to building a powerhouse roster. Guerrero Jr., known for his rare combination of power, agility, and plate discipline, would bring a new level of dominance to the Dodgers' infield. Analysts speculate that his presence could not only upgrade the defensive dynamics, but also offer a strategic boost at the plate. The young phenom has consistently demonstrated the ability to change the momentum of a game with a single swing, and pairing him with Los Angeles' already potent lineup could create an almost unstoppable offensive force. Fans and pundits alike are already imagining the ripple effects across the league. The Dodgers have a reputation for making daring acquisitions, and Guerrero Jr. fits perfectly into the narrative of a team willing to invest in top-tier talent to maintain championship contention. While nothing is official, insiders hint that negotiations could hinge on a combination of prospects, cash considerations, and possibly veteran players who might shift to accommodate the star infielder. Speculation also centers on the strategic impact this acquisition could have on the Dodgers' long-term plans. Guerrero Jr.'s youth and projected trajectory align with the team's goal of sustaining excellence for years to come. Beyond raw numbers, his presence could elevate the performance of those around him, creating a domino effect that strengthens both offense and defense. While fans are eager for confirmation, the excitement is palpable. Social media is already buzzing with potential lineups, projected batting orders, and defensive strategies. The Dodgers front office has remained tight-lipped, refusing to comment, which only fuels the speculation. If Guerrero Jr. were to join the Dodgers, it would signal not just a major roster shakeup, but a statement to the entire league. Los Angeles is willing to swing for the fences, both literally and figuratively, in the pursuit of baseball supremacy. That's all for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to stay up to date with exclusive news about the Los Angeles Dodgers, be sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that like button. We always appreciate your comments and feedback. See you in the next video.